Welcome to Visionary Voices, the College President's Playbook, a podcast that serves as your backstage pass to an uplifting and positive view into the collaborative playbook of higher education presidents and their senior leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Brian Gross. Join me weekly for discussions with some of the best minds in higher education leadership, from presidents to provosts, enrollment managers to CFOs, CIOs to chief diversity officers. This show is your ticket to the most future-forward strategies that are impacting real results on college campuses today. Each week, I will be posting highlights and insights from our show, so let's connect. Visionary Voices is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Well, welcome to Visionary Voices, the College President's Playbook. And this is a really special episode for me. We started the show talking about college presidents and providing a positive view of what it is to be a senior leader on college campuses today. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think a lot is written or often talked about regarding support systems for people in the seat of president. And so today I have two really terrific guests with me, Dr. Lucie Lapovsky and Dr. Cockerill. And I want to turn it over to you. Maybe just each of you give me a brief background in terms of your history in higher ed and how you got to where you are. And we'll start with you, President Cockerill. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Brian. And it's great to see you again, Lucie, and hear you again. I'm Cockerill, president of Wilmington College, just into the presidency a couple of months after about a year of an interim role. I joined higher education at Wilmington College about 17 years ago as a professor in agriculture and communication arts. I have an agriculture background, and with Wilmington College being the only small private agriculture college in the state of Ohio, it was a really good fit for me. So to be in this position to lead the institution is just a real honor.
That's great. And what an important position that you have, and what a special institution. It's been really great to get to know about Wilmington College and what a special place it is. And Dr. Lapovsky, tell us a little bit about you and your background, and how did you get on this podcast today?
I'm Lucie Lapovsky. I'm an economist who started out life at working in the Budget Bureau in Maryland and then the Higher Ed Commission for many years. And I went from there to Goucher College, where I was the chief financial officer, and then decided that I wanted to be a president because they could be the moral authority. Boy, was I wrong. But anyway, I was fortunate to be chosen to be the president of Mercy College in New York. And I did that for 5 years and did a lot of fun things. And, presidents who say it's a terrible, awful job 24/7, I would say I found it a really fun job where you got to do lots of different things and where it was very family friendly. It was the first time people wanted my family there. They were happy when my kids and husband, were around or came with me, which was very different than being a CFO or other positions I had. So I found it great. But then I stepped down from there and have been consulting ever since. So I have my own consulting firm, which is just me. It's Lapovsky Consulting. And I do strategic financial consulting with colleges and CFO searches. And I coach Corey.
That's amazing. And you happen to be an idol of mine. In my dissertation, I quoted you and your financial analysis quite a bit. So it's an honor to have you here.
Well, it's always to hear that. It's always nice to hear that.
So, Lucie, how did you come to collaborate with Corey, and what drew the two of you together?
I started collaborating with Corey, I guess, because there was another woman, Susan Resnick Pierce, who knew the chair of the board at Wilmington. And Wilmington, as every small liberal arts college, or almost everyone, probably except the one where you're working now, is having financial issues. And he asked his friend, Susan, for someone who could help with the financial issues. They were naming an interim president who was not a finance person and wasn't particularly experienced. And so they wanted me to help with the finance aspect. So chair of the board interviewed me, and then they put Corey and me together, and it was like love at first sight. We just really got along well. And it's been just an incredibly valuable collaboration between the two of us.
Awesome. Corey, I'd love to hear your perspective on that. Being introduced to Lucie and the amount of leadership that it takes to embrace this type of support system.
Right. So I was fortunate to come into a board who supported hiring Lucie and really opening up our books, our budgets, all of the information that we needed to open up to really right the ship, to get us moving in the right direction. We had significant turnover at the time. And of course, I'm coming out of the classroom. I came into this role from an assistant dean role for the sciences, but as Lucie said, without a lot of experience in finance. And I was open to, utilizing all the help I could get. And Lucie came with so much experience, so much perspective. I just laid it all out in front of her. And we had very open conversations. We were able to connect early on, and I could, be open with her, transparent, vulnerable, whatever it took to figure out where we were. It was really a starting point. And it wasn't just this transition. We were in the middle of our HLC 10-year comprehensive accreditation review. We were about a year out from that. And with a significant turnover, we just needed more help.
Great. So, well, it's amazing the two of you connected and felt this instant synergy. I think we have a lot of people in the audience that are wondering, what are the mechanics of your actual meetings look like? What does a typical session look like? How do you meet, and what are the formats for your meetings?
So we meet usually every 2 weeks for 2 hours at a time. The format is quite informal. Usually both Corey and I have sort of a list of things we want to go over. My list usually is follow-ups from our last conversation to make sure Corey's moving forward. And then Corey always puts on her list areas of concern, questions she has, places she needs some additional help. And so we just sort of go back and forth and, make sure we cover everything.
Right.
Corey, what can you add to that?
Yeah, I think for me, what's important about the mechanics is keeping pace. Lucie is great at picking up where we left off, and we're able to look at kind of a rolling agenda of things that we want to cover. And the pace is really important. The board is looking for that kind of pace. Higher education is moving very quickly right now. And I think what I appreciate most about our relationship is that we are on that same wavelength, moving very quickly to try to solve, the issues facing higher education.
Yeah, and sometimes Corey will send me things in advance or 5 minutes before we're meeting to have me look at them, whether it's the latest enrollment report or a new format for KPIs, or her strategic plan and how she's looking to fill it in. And I often play the role of devil's advocate. I will kind of push her to the mat with questions, say, have you thought about doing it this way? Or what about this? Or, are you sure you're comfortable with this? And are you including people? And is this going to alienate people? Sort of the questions you may not think about. And I guess the other thing I think I tend to do is Corey and most presidents I know are focused on their new initiatives, the big things they're doing. And I always ask about the bread and butter. How is your full-time undergraduate enrollment doing? How's your fundraising doing? Because they're not sexy. But if those aren't running smoothly, you're not going to make your budget.
It's amazing. I'm thinking about what a benefit it is to Corey to have, this confidential, objective person to meet with and to play devil's advocate as you talk about. I just wonder, Lucie, did you have anybody when you became president to help you with these issues?
Corey and I talked about that the other day when we met, because my board is a very business-like board, and in business, they all had coaches. And so it wasn't a big thing. This was back in 99, 2000. Higher ed coaches weren't an in thing, and they can be expensive. And so they got me a coach who was a wonderful woman from business. And I would say we became good friends, but the relationship was nothing like this. It was nowhere near as useful. She would keep saying to me, I can't believe what a hard job it is to be a president. I can't believe all the things you have to manage. I'm like, well, but you can help me. And she just had no concept, because she was used to such a different environment, where you told someone to do something and they did it. Didn't understand that, I was the president, but that didn't necessarily mean what I said got done.
I'm glad you shared that because I wonder if our audience is wondering, well, can this be done by somebody externally but no, I mean, it's really helpful to have somebody with your deep expertise in higher ed. So, Corey, I'm wondering if you might be willing to share a particularly challenging situation where you had to navigate something very difficult and you were able to really roll up your sleeves with Lucie on that.
Sure. So when I started in this role, I was expecting, to face challenges related to, of course, budget, finance, enrollment, and we certainly faced all of those challenges. But what I wasn't expecting was the challenges that came with turnover. And I had not been in a role that, managed a lot of people. So I wasn't used to the kind of challenge that comes with when you have significant turnover and where you don't necessarily have the cross training that helps you move through that process in a more streamlined fashion. So we lost individuals who were in positions of authority, in multiple positions of authority in the same office. And it was a very difficult situation. I was inclined to panic, but what I appreciate about Lucie is she's so steady that she would help me kind of walk through the questions that needed to be asked that were more proactive instead of reactive. So do you need these positions? Do you need the same, do you need different talent in those positions? Have you thought about combining positions? She just asked a lot of questions that moved me from being very reactive to somewhat proactive. And then I could think about moving forward, how do we backfill these positions or how do we find the talent that we're going to need moving forward? So I also appreciate what we call Lucieisms. These are these sound bites that Lucie delivers periodically. When she gives advice, the advice carries a lot of weight. And actually, as a Quaker institution, which Wilmington College is, historically, we call those weighty Quakers. But Lucie's words carry a lot of weight, and the advice she gives tends to linger. And I was able to hold on to that. Even when I started to panic over these transitions, Lucie kept things steady. So I appreciated that.
So do you have an example of a Lucieism that we could share with the audience?
Yes. She said within about a month of working with her, you don't have a spending problem, you have a revenue problem. And at first, at face value, I thought, well, of course. But the more I thought about it and the more I repeated it, it was significant because it drove what we did next. It drove the strategy, which was to focus on revenue, not on alignment of the budget. Of course, we had to do that later, and we continue to do that each year, but recognizing that we have to go for revenue opportunities first as a priority, that was really important. It set the tone for the board. They understood where we were heading, and it helped us move some pretty significant initiatives forward.
Hey there, it's Mallory, Chief Strategist of Enrollify. Higher ed is facing a leadership crisis. The demands on today's college and university leaders are skyrocketing, and talent is leaving the industry at an unprecedented rate. New leaders like you are emerging, but no one is getting the proper training to be successful. Well, Enrollify is here to change that. Our new course, Lessons in Leadership, taught by Dr. Carrie Phillips, will prepare you to be a confident, empathetic, and effective leader. From systems thinking to adaptive leadership, building culture to handling difficult decisions, this comprehensive online course is perfect for new and aspiring leaders. Don't wait. The course starts September 9th, and for a lucky group of 26 students, we have the option to add interactive sessions with Dr. Phillips for personalized guidance. Visit enrollify.org to learn more.
That's really helpful. Well, I want to move our conversation in just a moment and kind of talk about how, the support that you receive, Corey, benefits, the rest of the institution. But Lucie, I'm hearing from Corey all of these tactics that you use. I'm hearing things like active listening, you play devil's advocate, you focus on fundamentals, you give wise advice based on your experience. Do you have an overall strategy for going into these presidential support relationships? How did your whole methodology come about?
Each person's unique. And it's the act of listening. You listen to what their issues are, what their concerns are. I think I'm very good at asking a lot of probing questions to understand what the college's issues are. Because the president can be in one place, just as Corey said about, she was fixated over here. And the board was too. We had to cut. And finance is my area. So I looked at the data, looked at the history, and that was when I concluded it was much more a revenue issue. And Corey's done a phenomenal job in starting a prison program and looking at other areas where there's significant potential for revenue growth. Because the college was not particularly overstaffed. It was, when you looked at the metrics, you could see they had been operating quite efficiently for the most part. But each school is separate, different, unique. And so I don't think you would want someone who comes in with a formula and says, here's what I do. Just like I don't come in with an agenda for each of our meetings, because Corey and Wilmington are in different places. The other value I'd say, and Brian, you're one of the people who helped us, is I have an incredibly large network of experts and of very smart people. So I am able to connect the people I deal with those experts who are always very generous with their time. That's how you met Corey. I connected the two of you, and she had, a whole bunch of questions about admissions, enrollment, marketing, organizational structure, things of that sort. And I assume you were very helpful.
Yes, very much.
Well, thank you very much. Lucie, one other question. How many college presidents, in your estimation, do you think receive this type of formal support out there?
I don't know, but it's becoming more popular. And I think boards are realizing, for a while, I think CIC provided mentors. They had a grant, and college presidents were mentoring other college. They called it mentoring. And I wouldn't call it that. I mean, I would call it just sort of coaching, advising, all those sorts of things. So I don't know, but I'm hearing more and more talk about having coaches, and more, businessmen are used to having coaches. It's the thing in business. And so with the turnover of presidents, I think more and more enlightened boards are seeing they need to offer that kind of support. Because for a college president, you don't have friends, many of them, especially when they come in new to a college. Corey is fortunate she was at Wilmington. When I became president at Mercy, I didn't know anyone. You don't know who to trust. You can't suddenly say help. And so it's very, very difficult. And you have major decisions to make, where having some wise expertise and people who've gone through it could be extraordinarily helpful in keeping you from walking into minefields.
Yeah. Presidents need friends. That's really important. So, Corey, we on this podcast, we oftentimes speak with a president and a member of his senior leadership team. Are your senior leaders, your cabinet, are they aware of your support relationship with Lucie?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lucie provides support not just to me, but to the entire President's Council.
Oh, that's
I think she's met with each one, depending on the season that we're in, or what particular challenge we're facing, or where we want to be especially strategic. Lucie will come in and kind of talk through. I mean, we cover everything. That's what I appreciate so much about my relationship with Lucie. We do talk about the budget for a lot of the time, but in other meetings, we talk about strategic planning. We talk about organizational charts, leadership. She gives me advice on, identifying areas of strength and weaknesses and how to lean into those and figure out how to navigate those. So we really cover so much, a wide swath of higher education and the challenges we're facing at Wilmington College. So I think she has a relationship, at least with most members of President's Council. And she knows members of the board as well. She is kind of our intermediary. As we near board meetings, I meet with Lucie before I go into a board meeting. She'll look at my slides, or we'll talk through the presentation. She'll often tell me to stay focused because I can tend to get, inundated with all of the variables or all of the challenges going on. So yeah, Lucie covers the entire President's Council and full administration in her advice.
That's great. I think it's so valuable for people in our audience to hear this. We have a number of people who are aspiring leaders, and I think they have this notion that presidents just know everything all the time. They don't need friends. They just move forward and get everything done and to hear your competence and your intelligence and your openness to, needing to bounce things off of people and needing someone to play devil's advocate. It's really inspiring to me as a leader.
I think you need it. I think you have to be comfortable, vulnerable, transparent. Another phrase we used was open it up. We just have to open things up to try to understand, where are we challenged? Where are the roadblocks? And it's not always intuitive and it's not always obvious. And sometimes it takes the questions that Lucie presents.
And I would say it works so well, and Corey doesn't get defensive. She just listens. There are people I know who you would have to get through, some barriers, whereas she's just extraordinarily open, and we can disagree and, argue through it, but it's not with a defensive mechanism. She's not defensive and I'm not. I know the answer. So between the two of us, it's sort of equal footing of let's talk it through, play different scenarios, see what could come out.
Great. I'm wondering, Lucie, what are your thoughts about maybe there are college presidents listening now, and maybe they're just not in a position to hire you or somebody similar to play the role that you're playing. Do you have any advice for any current leaders on how they might be able to build a strong support network for themselves if they don't feel that they have one?
It's tough. I would say, you have to go to, affinity groups like CIC and others where usually you'll find very open presidents. And if you get recommended or connected with one over a certain issue or something, and many of us are very open to connecting and to doing a lot of work pro bono, where someone, I never turn down someone who calls for help or wants some information or help on an issue or wants to talk through something. And I think at least the group of presidents that I know and respect are all willing and open to doing that. I think a CIC or someone could put together another program where they could offer it without money. Because you see, oftentimes the schools and the presidents who most need this feel least resourced to be able to do it. And that's unfortunate.
Is it essential that someone who becomes a president has some sort of formal training or goes through one of these programs before? Corey, did you do any sort of training before you assumed the role?
I did not. I stepped into it cold as an interim president, and I was expected to be in that role for 18 months. That was the time frame that the board had communicated to me. And I think knowing that I had that interim title, I knew I had to step into it and kind of look around, look under things, look under rocks, pull things back, try to understand what was going on. And the board gave me the freedom to do that. They knew it would take some time to, navigate where we were, especially with our Higher Learning Commission visit. It was a matter of identifying, the state of Wilmington College today. At that point, this was April 2023. And I'm glad I had Lucie there. We really started, I think, about a month later working together. And it didn't feel like I was alone in the process. It felt like I had somebody reminding me where to look, reminding me what we might need to, I think, explore a little more carefully. I probably would have benefited from some training in probably collaboration, just really understanding how to work with President's Council members to build a team. This was something I hadn't done. I'd certainly done it in the classroom and I'd worked with colleagues, but to work with administrators was new to me. But Lucie was there to help. I think having somebody like her early on, especially if you're a president without a lot of experience, would be essential.
And Lucie, what would you say to those aspiring college presidents about seeking out a support network formally?
Oh, I think it's really important. See, interesting, in Corey's position, she wasn't aspiring. It just happened. She was anointed one day. So I would say, first of all, that interim presidents have it most difficult, most challenged, because there's a lack of clarity about their level of authority. Especially, she had to make some key hires. How do you explain who's going to be president when I'm interim and I have 18 months and I don't know what's going to happen? And I just went on the board where there's another situation similar to this. And it's really tough because you're facing tough situations and there's lack of clarity on, what you can do and how much you should be listened to. I would say if you're an aspiring president, you are building up a network, because usually you have a network of who's going to nominate you and who's going to connect you with which institution. So you have a chance to build that up. Whereas I don't think Corey was thinking about this at all. She was thinking about the farm animals.
Is that part of the work you do, Lucie? If someone's an aspiring president, will you kind of work with them on a multi-year plan to get them to a presidency?
I tend not to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, no, but there's hers does it for women. HRS is a big training program. Harvard has some programs, and there are other leadership programs for people who want to move up and become presidents.
That's great. In just a second, I want to zoom up and talk about collaboration. But before I do, do any of you have any closing thoughts regarding your specific presidential support relationship that we dove into?
I'd say you have to make sure there's synergy between you and the person you're going to deal with. I mean, it's interesting because I do CFO searches. So in many ways, when I'm doing that, I'm dealing with the president. And most of the time, the president who I'm working with and I have a lot of compatibility, because I'm telling them, you should structure this differently. But every so often, there are some that have styles that aren't transparent or aren't of my value structure. And, then I'll walk away from those because it's not a good fit if you and the president aren't on the same wavelength.
That makes lots of sense. How about you, Corey?
I tend to agree. I mean, I knew we were compatible very early on. I also felt very comfortable in that interim title in that role. I was fortunate to have a board that gave me the freedom and flexibility to navigate the space over a period of time. They didn't expect us to have things figured out immediately. Of course, they wanted us to move forward with revenue generating opportunities, but we had those ready to go. Talking with Lucie about what gave us the most opportunity, kind of what were the most salient or likely to succeed opportunities. Those were the ones that we led with, and it was the right thing to do. So there's something to be said about the synergy across my role, Lucie, and the board as well, because the board also backs up Lucie. She's met with them. She's presented to the full board. So they respect Lucie and they respect me, and they did it as an interim as well.
That's really amazing. So this show really does focus on collaboration, and this conversation has really been a huge emphasis on the collaboration among the two of you. What advice would the two of you offer aspiring leaders about fostering collaboration in today's ever-changing higher education landscape?
So I might start just to use an example. When I came into this role, our campus had gone through a pretty abrupt transition, and there were some hurt feelings. There was a lot of confusion and fear. And in order to get to a point where we could trust each other and begin to collaborate, and at a Quaker institution where we have first name basis, we make decisions by consensus, we use Quaker business practice, you really have to have a trusting environment. We went straight to what we call listening sessions. We brought the campus community together in open listening sessions and just let people talk through their frustrations and fears. And we worked on that together. Sometimes not everybody said something. Sometimes we would just sit together. But building a foundation of trust was really important, and it took several months. And then when we were ready, when we were primed for collaboration, the trust was there. And so I can't stress enough the importance of just listening to each other and being open to that, having an open door, in particular early on in a presidency or in a transition like mine, where people feel comfortable talking about their concerns. And we had a lot of conversations in those first 6 months that were difficult. Some people didn't want to continue at Wilmington College, and others were committed to continuing those collaborations.
It's amazing. Lucie, advice for our listeners?
I think it's listening, understanding the benefit of working with others. And if you can bring your university or college together, you will go so much farther than if you're separate, and how you get everyone on the same page, how you have that bigger vision that above tactics. and even above strategy, but really who we are and where we're going. And you can bring people together much more easily around that. And then if you're transparent, if you cascade it down to the specifics, they can, for the most part, understand why. And it's very important to have a senior team that shares your values and communicates and is transparent. I have seen so many presidents who get hurt by their teams, where if you walk around the school and you talk to someone 3 levels down, so to speak, they don't know what's going on. And so, they're skeptical and they don't trust. And so it's having that communication and transparency accepted and adopted and feel comfortable by everyone on your team. And you have to model it.
This is such important advice. I know there are college presidents listening right now who are benefiting from hearing this from the two of you. We end every episode by turning our attention to our Visionary Voices Spotify playlist. And I ask all of my guests to pick a song. And so in your case, President Cockerill, is there a song that you have selected that best exemplifies the spirit of Wilmington College or what it means for you to be a college president?
Well, what a great question. I spent several days now thinking about this, and I, of course, took it to my colleagues to see what they had to say, and I took it to the board chair to see what he had to say. It's always interesting to, take a question like this and share it across to see, are we all on the same page with regard to the song that best exemplifies Wilmington College? We are not. We go different directions on that. But yeah, I have a couple. I think my first one was Jack Johnson's We Are Going to Be Friends.
Oh, I love that.
It's cute. Why I like it is, Quakers call each other friends, capital F friends. So there was a reference to our Quaker heritage on that. But then when I talked to Dan last night, our board chair, he suggested Forever Young by Bob Dylan. And Joan Baez has another great version of that. But the lyrics really speak to him. And I agree, the lyrics really capture who we are as an institution and where we've been. And the reference to Forever Young, I think is a great fit for Wilmington College because of our youthful spirit. The tagline we're playing with right now is built by students, and it's a reference to a dorm that students built after World War II. It's called Marble Hall. And it was in response to soldiers coming back from the war wanting to come to Wilmington College, and we didn't have a dorm, so we built one from scratch. That same sort of ethos and grit is represented by programs like agriculture or hands-on programs that keeps us young. So I think Forever Young is another great song I would add to the playlist.
Well, I think I'm going to make the executive decision and put both Forever Young and We Are Going to Be Friends by Jack Johnson, because I just love that song too. I'm a big Jack Johnson fan, and it's at first it sounds like a children's song, but it's really deeply meaningful when you think about today's college age adults. So I love it. Great job.
It is.
And how about Lucie? Do you want to add to our playlist today?
So I'm not a great musical fan. I'm sort of a musical nerd. So I actually picked Beethoven's Eroica Symphony. And I did that because it expanded the symphonic form. And I think any college and any college president's going to be successful has to get outside of their comfort level and be creative and do new things. And here's someone who did it hundreds of years ago. And it's still, every time I hear it, it just opens up the creative juices. When you hear that symphony, it's an amazing piece of music.
Well, this was just such a wonderful conversation. I can't thank you both for being on the show and for just being so open and honest. And I have no doubt that you've inspired a lot of people listening today for the power of supporting senior leaders on college campuses. So thank you so very much. Visionary Voices, the College President's Playbook, is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admission professionals find their next big ideas and feature a huge selection of the industry's best. As your hosts, learn from Artis Cadu, Jamie Hunt, Allison Tercio, and so many more of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.